Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So excited to see this many people here today, so it's really great. Welcome to the second workshop in the Crew Chicago's Leadership and Professional Development Forum series on the Resilient Leader. We'll just start by reiterating our mission, and these programs are really organized around accomplishing that mission. The mission of Crew Chicago Leadership and Professional Development is to create a forum for members to converse and connect with the goal of growing and developing their capabilities as confident leaders, change agents, and fulfilled and effective professionals. We'll achieve our mission in a collegial, supportive environment that encourages openness, respecting the integrity of each Crew Chicago member. I'm Janice Wood with CVRE. Many thanks to our program coordinators, Heather Gleason, Janice Garcella, and Carrie, for helping get everybody into the room and seated and ready to rock on this program today. For the program, our presenters who will be helping us today to explore being grounded and developing our toolkit for balance are Carol Yurkash of Boudel and Damascus, Courtney Ham with MB Real Estate, and our special guest speaker and crew member, Michelle Pasquale, who is the founder of Meridian Financial Solutions, a niche tax firm specializing in helping commercial real estate owners maximize cash flow through cost segregation and tax incentives. But Michelle also has a secret talent as a highly trained facilitator in mindfulness and meditation, and she's going to share that special skill with us today. In our first forum, we explored kind of what the meaning of being a resilient leader is. And we'll start by looking at a working definition of resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, frustration, and misfortune, and it's essential to the effective leader. In our first kickoff session, we learned that a resilient leader is able to lead with calm, clarity, and conviction in the midst of change, and lead with strength by knowing how to care for themselves so that they can sustain their leadership efforts over time. And that's really the key. How can you maintain your strength and your clarity so that you can continue being a great leader? So I think that what we'll be exploring today is that we need resources for physical and mental clarity and support so that we can stay resilient. And that's what our purpose is in our session today. So now I'll turn it over to Carol, who's going to share a little more about adversity and challenges and how they affect us physically and why we need to be grounded to help counteract those influences.
So thank you, Janice. What is maybe the biggest challenge to our resilience? We're going to talk about stress. And we're going to talk a little bit about the physiology of stress. So in our daily personal and professional lives, stress erodes our resilience. It's well known that stress negatively affects our long-term physical and mental health. I think what's less well understood, particularly for women who are used to putting our needs behind others, is how if you don't take the time to effectively alleviate your stress, you can affect your ability to function in the moment. So what happens when you're stressed out? Your body floods with cortisol and other stress hormones, and that's what we all have heard of as the flight or fight response. I can never say that. The alliteration gets me every time. But when these hormones flood through your system, the body is preparing to confront or avoid danger. Sometimes this helps us rise to the occasion, like if you're really physically confronted with a dangerous situation. But this response is often triggered by other things that stress us, but that don't present direct physical dangers. Traffic jams, job worries, relationship problems. Our bodies respond the same way, but the response is not always very effective in helping us deal with the problem. So what happens to your mind when your body is flooded with these stress hormones? First of all, it narrows your focus. You miss pertinent information. Secondly, it prods us to take quick action and rush into things. We feel compelled to do something. Third, it makes us less able to recognize and explore all available options. We start having tunnel vision. I've experienced this in my own life back in the day when I was a brand new associate in law firms and I got into what I used to call deal frenzy. There'd be big deadlines all the time. I was up late. I wasn't getting any sleep. I was eating at my desk. I would literally lose the ability to understand a joke. If somebody said something funny to me, I'd be like, wait a minute, what does that have to do with the deal? And that was the indicator to me that I needed to find something either A, less stressful to do, or B, figure out better ways to handle my stress. Finally, it limits our capacity to think tactically or strategically, right? If your mind is incapable of taking in large areas of information, and if you are feeling compelled to come to a quick decision, that really doesn't lead to very much strategic thinking. The goal is not to eliminate stress. It's really an inescapable part of our work lives if we're operating at a high level and if we aspire to operate at a high level in constantly developing workplaces. But we can strive to ground ourselves to help counteract that stress. So here are some definitions that we used in developing our workshop to help us think about groundedness and how to help relieve stress. I personally like this Merriam-Webster definition. So in this workshop, we'll provide groundedness as an antidote to stress that we hope will make you more resilient. We focused on 3 elements of mindfulness: practicing mindfulness, getting clear; exploring your purpose, finding your why; nurturing support networks, relationships that empower us. And hopefully you'll leave this workshop with several resilience hacks for your own toolkit to help you relieve stress. So Michelle Pasquale will get us underway and help us explore getting clear as the first resource in our balance groundedness toolkit.
Well, thank you, Carol and Janice, for that great introduction and setting the foundation for our conversation today. I'm really excited to be talking to this group about this topic. Mindfulness is one of those things that I didn't really know I needed until I found it. So my entry into mindfulness began with yoga. And I arrived at my first yoga class in a perfect storm of anxiety. 9/11 had just happened, and I had just moved from New York City to Florida. Where I had lived in New York City, my commute could have easily put me, in the center of the tragedy. So that was a little bit of a surreal feeling. And I still couldn't get in touch with a lot of my friends. I was just, and in general, it was just a little bit, feeling on edge and out of body, like a lot of people at that time. And my boyfriend, we had a yoga studio right down the street from where we had just moved, and he had suggested I try yoga. And I kind of agreed with a little bit of a snarky attitude. I literally think I went in like, namaste, or om, and I have to say the joke was on me because I found in that class moments of peace and calm and balance, all of which were feelings that really weren't familiar to me. So that's my journey, and my journey started with yoga. Your journey may not start with yoga, but it's I see it as part of my purpose to give back, to help you find the value of mindfulness so that you can find your own path. And this process really begins with knowing ourselves. And so what does that mean? For me, I happen to have a little bit of a tendency toward anxiety. So that was maybe my challenge. But consider your own personal challenge, because based on genetics, our upbringing, we all have a different emotional template. But because of neuroplasticity, we have the ability to change that emotional template. And mindfulness really can help us do that. So I love this image of the juggler. Because let's be honest, if you're living a full life and following your passions, taking risks, your life is bound to get out of balance. And you're bound to lose a little focus in one area, to sacrifice another area and maybe drop a couple balls. As a business owner, I really feel this all the time, as a lot of you probably do. And I think a big part of why we all talk so much about balance is because it is such a challenge. And the reality is most things worth doing at the end of the day really aren't easy and a bit stressful. But life has, a way of throwing us curveballs. So, hey, Gianna, catch. Heads up, Gianna. And so we can manage a couple balls, no problem. And we learn to juggle early on. But then someone says, hey, can you get another one? Hey, Gianna, over here. Gianna, I could really use your help. You're really good at juggling balls. Can you help me out? Gianna, coming at you. And the balls keep getting bigger, and they keep coming faster, and this is kind of how life goes. So my point is it's messy. And I think, honestly, as women, there's this temptation that, or this pressure, I should say, that we, have to be able to do it all. And, without breaking a nail, losing our cool. There's this this tendency to be like, oh yeah, I got it. But I think we're really doing a disservice not only to ourselves, but to each other when we pretend that it's not hard and it's not messy. So just, I guess, something to think about there. And I guess that's why I love this quote, because I think it ties to the fact that we really can't control the outside world or what is thrown at us, but what we can control is our reaction to whatever comes up. And that is what a lot of this is about. It's ultimately a toolkit, because when we're clear, when we're present, we're most productive in life. And it's really an inside job, but it's a muscle that we all can choose to strengthen, and we can find our own innate balance, amongst whatever life throws at us. So a couple tips to make the workshop productive. Use your workbook as a workbook, the slide presentation. I want you to take notes, jot things down. Certain things are going to resonate with you, certain things won't. But just make a couple little notes so you can start to get a feel for how to integrate this into your day. Let's start with talking a little bit about our breath. Our breath is really the foundation of all mindfulness practices, and it's almost like a remote control for our brain. So let's just take a moment to arrive and be here now, because if you think about it, you're never going to get this moment, this group of people ever again at this point in time. So I want to start by just taking a couple deep cleansing breaths, and it's just going to be like an inhale through your nose and a loud audible exhale through your mouth. So if everyone together can just kind of inhale. And really exaggerate the exhale. I just want to do it one more time. And just kind of notice just after taking how good it feels, how pleasurable it feels, just to take a couple deep breaths. We can really recognize all of our emotional shifts in our body. So you're feeling, what happens when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling stressed? Our breathing gets a little bit shallow, right? Then in turn, our chest starts to tighten, and that forward posture starts to happen. And all of a sudden, that creates the fight or flight response. It slows digestion. It slows all of our processes. Instead, when you're calm, when you're relaxed, your breathing is slow and deep, and there's a more open quality. Your posture is better. You're able to be a little bit more confident, a little bit more open. So things to think about in terms of our breath, because by tuning in and bringing our awareness to our breath, it can create a shift in our state of mind. And that's why, again, to reiterate, breath is not only the link between the mind and body, but it's really the foundation of all of the mindfulness-based practices. So, connecting the breath with the body, I want to talk a little bit about movement. And I want to start by saying, I know for me, it's when I'm busy, when I'm focused on a deadline, it's extremely easy for me to ignore my body, to ignore all of the signals, even if I'm in pain, which is preposterous, to actually take a break, just in the name of muscling and powering through. And I don't know if can anyone relate to that? Yeah. And we're really doing ourselves a disservice because it becomes diminishing returns, right? At a certain point, you're not as productive, whereas if you just stepped away for a minute, but we all do it. And so I just want to talk now about how we can integrate a little bit of movement into our day and kind of give our bodies a break, do a few different counter poses to offset that. Because a lot of us actually, unless something's in pain, will avoid being in our bodies. So we're going to do just a little bit of yoga. So if everyone can come slightly forward in their chair, maybe to the middle of their chair. We're not going to be doing any acrobatics. There's going to be no toe typing. It's a whole different workshop. So does everyone have a little bit of space around them, a little dance space? All right. So shake out your hands. It's great for carpal tunnel, just to loosen up the wrists, and then extend your arms, spread your fingers. Just point your fingers down. Yeah, and then back up. And then just do a couple little circles. And then release your arms to your side. Just a little bit of twisting. Twisting is very detoxifying, good for the digestion. And then come back to center and just kind of shrug your shoulders, really exaggerating into your shoulder blades. I like to just go backwards, but if forward feels good for you, you can do that. I just feel like we get so much forward posture. And then bring your arms up over your head. And just bend over to the right side. I'm not mirroring you, so just go to your own right. And then back up to center, opening up your torso, go to the other side. And then back to center. And then bring your hands behind your head. And just come forward, opening the back of the neck, bringing your chin to your chest. Take a breath. And then come back to center. And release your arms down. And then I'll mirror you this time. Bring your left ear to your left shoulder. And extend your right arm. Just kind of out in front. You just want to kind of get into this lateral portion of the neck. And you can kind of move your arm forward and back, up and down to kind of get into any tension area. And then with your right hand, bring it to your ear. To just gently bring your head back up to center and release your arm down, and then drop your opposite ear to your opposite shoulder. Extend the arm. Notice if one side's tighter than the other. Kind of breathe into it. And kind of move your arm around again if there's a spot that feels a little tense. And release it back down. Come back up to center. And then bring your arms straight behind you and pointing your fingers toward the ground in almost like a diagonal. Just kind of opening up your chest and the front side of your body. And then squeezing those shoulder blades together just to kind of strengthen those back muscles. And then give yourself a hug. counter pose. And then opposite arms. And release back down. And then lastly, bring your hands to your knees. I'm just going to do a little cat-cow. So shift your hips forward, your gaze up, open your chest. And then rounding your back, coming into cat, suck your belly in and drop your head down. And then gradually, when you're ready, come back up to center. And so we're just wanted to show you some stretches that you can really do at your desk. It doesn't have to create a big scene. You don't have to do them in a sequence. It's just a matter of kind of getting your energy flowing and opening things up a little bit. Some other ideas, all the research basically encourages movement on the hour. So for your reference later on, think about how you could integrate additional movement into your day, whether it's taking the stairs, taking a different, longer bathroom route, honestly, whatever works for you. We're going to keep moving on and talk about mindfulness and really get into defining mindfulness and what it means. So before I do that, quick check-in. How is everybody doing? How is everybody feeling? Did the breathing and the movement help relax and center you?
Yes.
So mindfulness is pretty straightforward. It's exactly what the word sounds like, which is, the mind is fully attending to what it's doing in the here and now, which sounds pretty trivial if not for the fact that our minds take flight and regularly veer from the matter at hand. So I've included over here John Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness, which essentially is paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So just let that sink in for a second. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. In the back of your workbook, you have a handout on the attitudes of mindfulness that I highly recommend you reference later. But for now, the main things that I want to point out, for most of us in the room, we tend to be a little bit more type A. First, it's a state of being rather than doing. So that requires a certain level of patience to allow things to unfold. Second, it's important to have a beginner's mind, which is to say an open mind and letting go of that harsh inner critic that a lot of us might have. And when we realize, I think, how many of you have tried meditation? So it's hard, right? And it's hard because we want to do it right. And our minds wander. That's just what happens. And so we get annoyed. So it's letting go of judgment, letting go of that inner critic, because that's just part of it. So the last part I think I just really want to emphasize on this table is the acceptance. So the acceptance of whatever comes up, whether it's intense emotions, whether there's a restlessness that you're feeling, which is really just part of the human condition, or there's a thought that you can't quite seem to let go of. Whatever it is, there's that adage that what resists persists. So just allowing whatever it is to be. And just being okay with that is a huge part of mindfulness. So we're all really overall, mindfulness is not esoteric. It's something that we're all familiar with, and we all come across it regularly in our daily lives in a whole variety of things far beyond this list. I went golfing yesterday evening, and that, to me, is mindful activity. When my mind's not in it, my shots are going all over the place. I think they may anyway sometimes, but in terms of, I think of mindfulness, those areas where you're in the flow, in the zone. For athletes, or even, in work, I think it can be evidenced by levels of peak performance. But it can also be something simple, or it could just be times where you're with your family. So it's different for everybody, but think about things that you can do that bring that mindfulness aspect, because it's not so much about what you're doing, but the attitude you're bringing to it and the quality of your intention and how you're doing it, because you really have the ability to be mindful whether you're brushing your teeth or walking the dog or washing your face. Pretty much every opportunity gives us an opportunity to be, every activity gives us an opportunity to be mindful. So this is why I love to talk about the senses, because the senses, like our breath, are something that is always with us. And they're really our gateways to the present moment. So this quote from Albert Einstein I love, because it's a great way of looking at the world and engaging with the world, because it gives us that context of gratitude and appreciation for everything. And every moment is an opportunity really to stay in touch with the senses, which is really kind of a neat way to engage with the world. So I'm going to go through each of the senses and some ways that you can use them to really maximize the present moment at any time. So starting with sight, our cell phones are an issue here. Right? There's this constant temptation because they're always fighting for our attention. And, one of the reasons, our grandparents didn't meditate, they didn't have the same, they had their other stuff, but it wasn't, we're getting flooded with so much intensity, so much information. There's this constant pressure to respond almost immediately. And it's hard not to be glued to our phones. And then even when we're not glued to our phones, how many of us have been walking down the street and all of a sudden, we bump into somebody that we know, and we realize that we've just been completely lost in thought in another world. It's almost embarrassing. It like jolts you up. That happens to me all the time, and I'm like, where the heck was I? So, just an idea to, at times, sometimes you have to get that text in, but other times it's a bad habit. And take a break when you can. Just think about that. Think about where those opportunities are for you. Also, when you're moving about your day, take a look up at the horizon. The people that you pass on the street. Notice the shapes of the clouds, the hue of the sky. Just noticing things like patterns and colors and shapes. The way the light reflects off the building. All of a sudden, that kind of brings you back, right? It kind of re-centers you. And so these are the opportunities that we all have on a daily basis. Everybody, for a moment, just close your eyes. Bear with me. Now see if you can remember the flowers on the table. Now open your eyes. Take a look at the flowers. Notice the colors and the shapes, the texture. And just realize, I guess the question is, how much did you take in before? How often do we look at things without really seeing? And just marinate on that. And also consider, for me, I'm highly visual. So I like having things, I love having fresh flowers around, plants, art, things of beauty in my environment, because they give me that pause. You likely do this too in some way, whether it's photographs or art or whatever it is, but because it brings you back, right? It connects you to something outside all this other stuff. So just something to think about for you. Another quick idea is lighting a candle. Most of us have a candle in our home. Just watching the flickering of a flame is a really peaceful thing to do. It's actually my favorite way to meditate. And there's something about it, the way it kind of dances. So something you might want to try, just an idea. These are all ideas. And the goal with all of this is to identify just different ways you can integrate this into your life. The power of scent is remarkable, actually, because it's the only scent the olfactory organs or system links to memory and emotion. So see if you can recall for a moment the smell of a baby, or maybe your grandmother's house, or a cup of coffee. All of those bring up a certain emotion, a certain feeling. For example, when I smell lilac, fresh lilac, I think of spring at my aunt's house. When I smell a campfire, I think of camp. Because of this phenomenon, you actually create. Smell has the ability to help you create neuroassociative conditioning. So, what is that? Neuroassociative conditioning is basically, for example, why incense is used in certain meditation traditions, because the incense becomes associated with a certain state, making it easier for you to meditate when you smell that at a later date, or repeated times. So every time you go back in, all of a sudden it's easier to meditate. So you don't need to light incense, but you can create this with pretty much anything. You have that ability to do this. So I like to, for example, use lavender before I go to bed at night, and it kind of helps me relax. So just think about what it is that helps you relax. What is it that uplifts you? What smells? So this is, I don't know if you can smell it. I couldn't smell it, so I felt the need to spray more. This is peppermint. And for me, it's an energizing smell. For you, it could be a citrus smell, or maybe it's the smell of a cup of coffee. But just consider what might do it for you, because again, it's a gateway to the present moment. When you smell, it brings you back. So just experiment with that. I like sound because we all are familiar with the power of music to calm us, to uplift us, it can even cradle us in sadness. It hits us almost at the level of the heart. I would even argue potentially the level of the soul, and there are a lot of studies that have come out at a cellular level. Music hits us. There's lots of studies about babies in the womb and how music played. There's actually studies shown that they have recognition in their cells of the music. So because of that, music has a unique ability, and we all have our own blueprint, so to speak. So not unlike smells, there are sounds that you may love that other people, it's like nails on a chalkboard. And so it has the power to heal us, but also unnerve us. So thinking about what associations do that for you and how, maybe you turn off the TV and take a break from the news during household tasks and put a little music on. And it's great for a shift and just to kind of help you reconnect and bring you back. It's really that simple. There's also things out there like binaural beats, which they help you achieve a certain brainwave state. And there's different sounds in each ear, and their levels of beats, so to speak. And it can help with sleep, it can help with anxiety, and there's all these studies on how sound resonates with us. So touch and taste, we're going to go through. And for touch, for me, I think, especially because I tend to, when I'm busy, just forget about my body. So just take a moment and feel your toes. I do that when I find myself take flight. Sense your head. And see if you can almost, feel the hairs on your head. I know it sounds funny, but it kind of gets you in touch. Feel the air on your skin. And temperature is one of those things that, some of us run hot, some of us run cold. So part of mindfulness is also the ability to be aware of how different things affect us. So, notice how you feel during certain seasons. Notice, how it affects your appetite or how you eat or your energy level. And just being mindful and aware can help you use that data to make adjustments. So it's really, another important aspect of mindfulness in terms of knowing yourself. In terms of being mindful when we're eating, it can be challenging. I at times, I'm not always great at this, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Emotional eating or mindless eating is not at all uncommon. So we're going to try it. You have a Hershey Kiss on your table, hopefully. We didn't tell you not to eat them, so it's... And we're going to just do a little mindfulness eating exercise with this. So first, just take the Hershey Kiss and kind of put it in the palm of your hand. And I almost want you to look at this like you're Charlie Bucket from Willy Wonka, and you've never, seen a Hershey Kiss before, and you're just so in awe of this Hershey Kiss. And just notice the shape, the texture, the wrapper. And then begin to unravel the wrapper, just taking in any sounds that it makes. And then take a look at the color and the shape. And when you're ready, bring it up to your nose and just inhale the smell, take in the aroma, and then place it on your tongue. And I don't want you to chew it just yet. I just want you to just kind of let it stay there and let it just melt a little bit slightly. And notice the temptation to just get on with it. And now you can kind of go ahead and, let it melt or kind of roll it around in your mouth or maybe go ahead and chew it. But I find this exercise excruciating. And I went really fast, actually, compared to how long I'm supposed to take with it. But it's just interesting. So I think it would be ridiculous to eat a meal like this more than on a blue moon. But there are ways, for example, you can eat a piece of chocolate like this once a day and just savor it. And it might just be a way to just kind of luxuriate in the taste. Or, maybe it's instead of, ideally, it's ideal if we can get away for lunch. Sometimes we have to eat in the office, but we don't have to multitask. We can typically take 10 minutes just to eat. So it's simple. And we make healthier choices when we do that, and it's just better for our digestion, and it just gives us a minute. So just little things to consider. So why meditate? If there's all these other gateways to the present moment, why do we even need to meditate if we can be mindful eating a piece of chocolate or spraying a smell? And the reason to meditate is because it helps us to be more mindful more easily. So the more you meditate, you're strengthening that muscle, and therefore you can more readily be mindful in your daily life. There's a reason why almost all, I shouldn't say, many of the, elite athletes and top performing leading executives meditate. Clarity, better sleep, just to think and manage stress, make decisions with compassion and kindness, brings equanimity, creativity, and peace. Just one word, productivity, energy, strength, health, wisdom. Russell Simmons actually has a unique Netflix video where he's helping inner city youth meditate, just worth mentioning, I thought. And increasing happiness, peak performance. So there's all these advantages, and this is just a snapshot. I mean, you can go on and on finding all the successful people that meditate and their why. So I want to talk a little bit about the science. There are thousands of studies out there, and there's been a dramatic increase in the past 10 years in studies done on meditation. The brainwave study to the left shows a picture of the brain before and after meditation. And the picture to the left is the brain in default mode or monkey mind. And does everyone know what monkey mind is? Okay. Does someone want to share what monkey mind is?
When you're on your phone and you're just reacting all the time.
Yes, so she said when you're on your phone and you're reacting. It's the unsettled mind. It's if you picture a monkey, exactly. She's going like this.
The monkey's going from tree to tree.
Exactly.
You're going from thought to thought.
Right, so it's like before they've let go of one tree only to grab another one. And so you almost want to think of the trees in the jungle as thoughts in your mind or emotions or items on your to-do list, and it's just you're all over the place. And that's how the mind is. So the picture, so those yellow, orange, red colors are varying levels of intensity and activity, where the picture to the right is just after 10 minutes of meditation, and those blue colors are the calm waves. Big difference. The studies in neuroscience have also showed that meditation increases the size of the prefrontal cortex part of the brain, which is our part of the brain that manages concentration, judgment, emotional intelligence. And it also, conversely, shrinks the amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for fight or flight. So that's that calm under pressure. That's that ability to not react as quickly, to take more measured reaction, equanimity. I'm just going to go on walkabout a little bit with this slide. I think it's important, but at the risk, and I'm kind of risking losing you a little bit, but I just wanted to touch on some universal concepts. So consider the energy that you bring to a certain situation. And consider that energy, it's far more than what you're doing or what you're saying. And, we talked a lot about the senses, but it's also, we're picking up, far more than just what's coming in through our senses. So everything ultimately is energy. And how we filter our response to others, or how we're handling a tense or emotionally driven situation, and the degree of clarity we have, and the degree of presence and how we're approaching a situation can really greatly impact things for better or worse. So it's just something to think about, because I know I've done it. I'm just, I'm frazzled. I'm rushing from one thing, and I show up, and, I may be saying or doing the right thing, but the way I'm being is off, and that's felt. And so I just ask you to consider that mindfulness, helps to focus your energy, and it's really a key component of resilience and performance under pressure in high stakes, high pressure situations. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we're going to do a little meditation. I'm glad that you all have some experience. It sounds like some of you might have a lot of experience. Some have dipped your toe in. I think the most important thing is to find a comfortable seat. So I'm not a big fan of sitting like a yogi or fighting through discomfort on the floor. I think that kind of gets in the way. Instead, just get comfortable. Ideally in an upright position. So lying down, there's just that tendency to fall asleep. And then we're going to go through a few different methods, but just commit to one method and a time frame at the start of your session. So if you say you're going to do 5 minutes of following the breath, don't give yourself an out to follow at 3. Just honor whatever that commitment is. We all kind of, this is hard, I don't feel like it, there's other things to do. Don't give yourself that out. Lastly, the brain wanders 47% of the time. So it's part of it. Your brain is going to bounce around. Just gently bring it back 1,000 times over and over. And just keep with the practice. That's it. It's really simple, but it's not easy. So we're going to meditate. Janice is going to get the lights. And I just want you to get comfortable in your chair. Take a moment. And gently close your eyes. Relax your shoulders down and back. Maybe let the crown of your head float up toward the ceiling. And just take a moment to follow your breath. Not trying to control your breath. Just paying attention to the inflow and outflow of the breath. You don't need to do anything, just breathe naturally. And then keeping your focus on the breath, I want you to begin to count your breaths silently from 1 to 5, and then back to 1 again. So each inhalation and exhalation counts as 1. Counting up to 5. Each inhalation and exhalation is 1 number, and then starting back again at 1. And if at any point you lose count, just gently come back to 1. Thoughts come up, just let them float by like clouds and stick with the practice. And I want you to stop counting and come back to your breath. One breath at a time. When one breath ends, the next begins. And if you can, bring your attention to your gut or solar plexus. And I want you to ask your higher self. So repeating silently to yourself, what am I struggling with right now? Silently to yourself, what am I struggling with right now? Just do your best not to overthink it and notice whatever comes up. And then just let it go. Come back to your breath for an anchor. And then silently to yourself, what do I most need to learn right now? Don't worry about remembering it. Trust yourself, you'll remember later. What do I most need to learn right now? And then lastly, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to let go of? And then coming back to following your breath. Like small, gentle waves in the ocean. As one wave floats by, another one arises. And then I want you to bring your attention to your third eye, which is that point kind of above the ridge of your nose, right in between your eyebrows. And as you inhale, repeat to yourself the word so. And as you exhale, hum. Inhale, so. Exhale, hum. So, hum. So, hum. So hum is Sanskrit, and it's a language of vibration that has the power to resonate on a cellular level. So hum. Should almost feel soothing. So hum. So the literal translation for so hum is I am. I am. Which is to say that I am that which is always there, whether I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, whether I'm happy or sad. So hum. I am. I am the awareness. I am not my mind. I am not my thoughts. I am the one watching. So gently, keeping your eyes closed, I just want you to come back to your breath. And we're just going to continue to follow it gently and easily. like ripples on a stream. Bringing your attention to your heart. And if you can, direct your breath to that heart space. And repeat silently to myself, to yourself, after me. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. I'm thinking about somebody in your life that maybe needs strength. May he or she be happy, and you can insert their name. May he or she be healthy, and may he or she live with ease. And then lastly, sending this out to all beings. May all beings be happy. May they be healthy. And may all beings live with ease. And when you're ready, I just want you to kind of shift your gaze downward and gradually let your eyes open and transition back to the room in your own time. We first started out with just following the breath, which is, something you can access really at any point throughout your day. And it's just a very basic meditation. And then we went into a counting and focused meditation, which is a great tool for beginning meditators because it's focused and it helps build focus. And so if you do the counting for, say, 5 minutes, you'll realize that you will lose count. How many of you, unfortunately, it was just a couple minutes of counting. So did anybody lose count? Yeah. So it's such a simple exercise, we get bored. And our minds, okay, I'm on autopilot, and we skip off. That's what happens. We then came back to the breath, just a transition, and we went into an insight question-based meditation. And I'm a big fan of this. I really am a firm believer that, whatever's going on, we typically know the answer and we have it inside of us. It's just a matter of getting still enough to hear that wisdom. So this is great whenever, you're trying to figure out a next step or you just need some clarity to kind of pose these questions to yourself and just let them settle in. How many of you found yourself going to thinking because we were asking it questions? And how did you guys find it? Yeah, you're nodding. Yeah, I get it, yeah.
What were the questions? I don't remember.
It was, what do I need to learn? What do I need to let go of? So you let go of it. What do I most need to know? Or what am I struggling with, I think is what we said. And then lastly, we went in, or not lastly, actually, we did a mantra sound-based meditation. I like to include that because for some people, the Sanskrit kind of resonates. For some, it's a little bit too abstract, but we're all a little bit different. How did you guys find the so-hum? Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, it is, right? There's kind of Sanskrit's the language of, one of the oldest languages. It's ancient India, classical language. Many of you have probably heard of it, but it has a vibration that tends to resonate. And I kind of like the I am. I am that which is always there, regardless of what's going on. I am the awareness. I am the one who notices. I am the observer. And then lastly, we ended with loving kindness, which is more of a Buddhist meditation style. But I like that because if you're ever in a place where you're just struggling with intense emotions or you're feeling really angry, it really shifts you into that heart space so that you're able to approach a problem from a more evolved perspective. You're able to kind of get out of the ego and see the bigger picture. It just kind of, and then, there's that aspect of, I saw the movie Eat, Pray, Love the other day, and I remember when she was doing, most of us have seen that, right? And she also, she in her meditation started focusing also on somebody else. So taking, that love, that heart energy, and, using it to also help somebody else kind of also gets us out of our own ego. And, we can, be a conscious change for the world, honestly. And I'm just highlighted the other items that we touched on here. So we also so this was a bit of a guided meditation. You can also download an app, and do guided meditations yourself. We did a body scan on the touch. We did mindful eating. We reviewed how to kind of integrate with the present moment for all the different senses. These others just honestly take a little bit more time to go through, but wanted to give you a good bit to work with so that you can kind of pick and choose. So now I kind of want to go into talking about how you integrate this into your daily life, right? So it's not just a workshop that you went to and then it's lost the next day. Because another from Eat, Pray, Love, if you want to get to the castle, you have to swim the moat. So you really need to actually show up and do this. And it doesn't, there's a full toolkit, right? So practicing during routine activities, walking down the street, noticing the color of the sky, the patterns in nature, the feel of the breeze on your skin. You can do it when you're walking the dog or waiting in line. There's all sorts of opportunities in our daily lives. Also, it's really best in the beginning. While 20 minutes is said to be kind of the sweet spot in terms of the science, there's tons of studies that show the effect of just a couple minutes of meditation. So everybody has 3 to 5 minutes. So keep it short because consistency and quality of attention is going to be more important than quantity. And in the beginning, we respond best to short bursts of mindfulness. So you're going to get a lot more out of integrating it throughout your day versus going on a weekend retreat and then just forgetting about it. So pick a prompt. We all, we have Fitbits, we have Apple Watches, things that trigger us to move or to take a breath. Or set a reminder on your phone, put a sticky note on your computer. We all have ways of reminding ourselves. And, lastly, practice. Learn to meditate. And when I say learn to meditate, it's not necessary, you don't learn a new language by not practicing it, right? You can't just become fluent in Spanish. So you learn to meditate by practicing meditation, and it gets easier. You bring yourself back 1,000 times, and eventually you get the hang of it. So just some tips to kind of think about. We definitely went through a lot, so I encourage you, there's a worksheet. Pardon my flipping of papers, but there's a worksheet in the back of your handouts that will also I encourage you to jot some notes down and think about what might work best for you. Only you can answer that. And I lastly wanted to end with just a Zen master quote, which, the reality is, like the exercise with the stress balls in the beginning, we can't wait for a break in the clouds or the moment when things are ideal in order to return to clarity. But we have an ability to have that pure glass of water all the time. And because of this underlying restlessness that's really part of the human condition, the ability to be still and wait for the mud to settle. Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? That's a challenge we all face, to have that patience, to kind of rein it in, the inner restlessness. So there's going to be many cycles in the process, stormy days, clear days, and like training a puppy, you want to just bring yourself back 1,000 times over and over, and it gradually gets easier. So we touched on a lot of these topics at a high level, and we went through a lot pretty quickly. You're going to get a survey at the end, and I know membership is looking into creating some workshops in these areas. Potentially, I think they're talking about doing one as early as this summer. So it's based on your interests. So if you're interested in doing more with yoga or breath or mindfulness or meditation, just indicate it on the survey. Also, if it's something you think your company culture would like or could benefit from, it tends to be, like Ray Dalio is an example. He owns one of the largest global hedge funds. It tends to be a leadership top-down philosophy, and I've experienced doing workshops they're kind of more lasered, targeted for executives, and it really kind of ties in they're more unisex, and it's a little bit more wellness and leadership, resilient focused. Additionally, so just email me or anyone on the team, or put it on your survey. And I guess lastly, I just want to introduce actually Courtney, who's going to be leading us on, you guys are getting a lot today. We're throwing a lot at you. So she's going to be talking about purpose, and with greater awareness, greater clarity becomes greater knowledge of ourselves and an awareness of why we're here on earth. So mindfulness is a good segue into purpose.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about purpose. Angela Duckworth is the founder and CEO of Character Lab, a nonprofit whose mission is to advance the science and practice of character development. In her best-selling book, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance, which will be our next Crew event focus, Angela has found that the combination of passion, perseverance, and purpose is the hallmark of high achievers in every domain. She defines purpose as the intention to contribute to the well-being of others, that at its core, purpose is the idea that what we do matters to other people other than ourselves. It can also be a great source of motivation and aid us in making well-balanced decisions. I think the quote at the top of the slide is pretty impactful. Mark Twain, the two most important days in your life are the day that you were born and the day you find out why. We have a short video here. Simon Sinek, he's somebody that we came across in our research. He's got a website called startwithwhy.com. And we felt that this video directly correlated with Angela Duckworth's definition of purpose. So the power of why and why finding your purpose is important. Being defined by your purpose rather than a single one-dimensional role, as she talks about in the video, allows us to be seen as a well-balanced whole. Purpose is the foundation from which we do all things. And when we're able to be led by our beliefs, we're capable of being more passionate about what we do, and we're certainly more resilient as well as consistent. It's more likely that we will see our work as a calling versus a job or a career. That's what Angela says in her book. And that's because we've come to realize that we're positively impacting others in the world around us. People with purpose tend to be happier and more engaged, be more productive. One study actually shows that people who call their work a calling versus just a job miss at least a third fewer days of work than people with a 9 to 5. And we also are able to make better decisions because we're leading with our beliefs, especially in face of adversity and stressful situations. Knowing and sharing our why changes how we show up to do what we do. And that's really some inside-out thinking. By now you're probably starting to see how purpose can be an anchor to you in all aspects of your life, especially when we're overwhelmed, but the decisions still need to be made, the goals still must be reached, and the hard choices just keep coming, like the balls that Michelle was throwing at Gianna. But having that deep-rooted reason behind what you do means that even though you're forever starting new journeys, you will always have the anchor of your purpose to rely on along the way. According to Simon Sinek, understanding your why is actually the secret ingredient to our success, whether it's personally or professionally. But only 20% of people have a strong sense of their individual purpose or their why. And that's most likely because we haven't really given ourselves the opportunity to explore it. Like Michelle was saying, as women, we tend to think we can power through everything life throws at us and successfully navigate all aspects of our lives. But I think we all know that's not really the case. So what better time to start exploring your purpose than now? Of course, finding your purpose is no small feat and certainly cannot be accomplished in today's workshop. But hopefully we're going to get you thinking about where you find the most meaning in your life and work and how that translates into what your purpose is. This exercise is going to take about 10 minutes. We'd like you to take 5 minutes to run through the steps. Think about a moment you're most proud of, whether at work or personally. It might not be your biggest win, but it's certainly a situation that made you feel good and impactful. Then take those 5 minutes to look through steps 1, 2, and 3, and hopefully you'll be able to complete the Mad Lib in step 4, or potentially, just use this as a jumping off point. When we're done with 5 minutes, we're going to ask you to pair up with someone at your table and just discuss what you found. For example, I did this exercise. So step 1, look for passion. I really find that I excel and enjoy helping others around me find solutions, maybe taking the mystique or the unknown out of situations, whether that's, someone in my family, a close friend, or, one of the 89 tenants that I have in my building that I have to deal with on a daily basis. They don't live and breathe leases like I do, so they get confused easily, potentially. They're not quite understanding a certain charge or something, or, they are there to run a business, and, the little things that I can do, like plan monthly happy hours for the tenants, something as simple as, helping them schedule the freight elevator for a furniture delivery, anything like that. Like I said, I can demystify. I enjoy bringing solutions. I'm helping them run a better business. And while it's not about the almighty dollar, but at the end of the day, when people are being able to be successful, it's kind of a win-win for everybody. So my step 4, my Mad Lib could be, I exist to provide solutions in order to serve my friends, family, or tenants. So if you can all take 5 minutes, don't worry about the time. We'll keep an eye on that for you. So I think by now you can see how defining your purpose allows you to work with and lead your team from a place of intent and passion. When this type of foundation is in place, it is easier to positively impact the desired results we're looking to accomplish. Purpose allows you to start with the end in sight. Stephen Covey actually, had that concept, knowing where you want to end up. It's like having a roadmap to why you're going someplace and how to get there. And I believe this is an important trait of a resilient leader, because when you have the end in sight from the onset and you have a history of successfully reaching your goal in the manner most true to you, which is your purpose, people, for example, your team, are willing and ready to go along on the journey with you. Performing mindfulness exercises and cultivating relationships that both support and challenge you are tools that can help you define your why, which we established, I think, when Michelle was giving her part of the presentation. And then we're actually going to move on to relationships and how cultivating them and fostering relationships can help us to be more grounded and more resilient. There is also an exercise in the back of your booklet that talks specifically to this, along with the exercises that Carol's going to do. But again, Simon Sinek helps. It's called the Friends exercise. It has nothing to do with Jennifer Aniston. But it's one of the many exercises that he has on his website that helps you further explore your purpose. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol.
One of the things that was happening while we were discussing endlessly, it seemed, how we were going to present all of this material is how everything is intertwined and seems to double back on itself constantly. So one of the things that's really interesting is relationships as both an element of resilience all by itself, but also how it contributes to other elements of it. And relationships ground you, but they're also important to help you identify your purpose and also achieve your purpose. So as you see, all these things are resonating and doubling back on each other. Relationships are important to groundedness in two ways. They're powerful factors in shaping our why. We just went through that exercise. We know what we were trying to do. And both by giving and receiving support, relationships make us a lot more resilient. So let's take a moment and take a look at this slide. Here are some important questions to ask yourself and to reflect on in terms of your relationships, thinking about the types of relationships you have, the quality and strengths of our relationships as a way of grounding us. So the other thing I was thinking about, or that we were discussing, is what we learned about mindfulness earlier in this workshop and how bringing mindfulness helps us with our relationships. We need to be present in our relationships. We need to be open and listen to what people are saying. We have to bring our mind and focus on what somebody is sitting right in front of us is telling us, instead of having that monkey brain bounce around and think about what the next thing you want to say is versus what you're actually hearing. You have to bring your authentic self to the conversation. So if you know what your purpose is, that's a huge way to bring yourself to the conversation. If you know your purpose, you also know who you are and the value you bring to relationships and interactions, and that's critical. And finally, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be able to and willing to communicate what you don't know and what kinds of support and help you need from other people. A large part of being a resilient leader, leading teams that are resilient, that can react to changes and adversity, is to understand all the elements that different team members bring. And if you're not willing to admit what you don't know what elements other people might be able to bring to a team to strengthen the team. It's hard to do it all by yourself. None of us really can. So I love this slide. This epitomizes to me grounding relationships. These women are in balance, and this maneuver is completely impossible without both of them there. I love the mutual grounding and support that these women are giving to each other in order to achieve this really beautiful effect. So a key aspect of personal and organizational resiliency, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that you have to both give support and accept support. So giving support to others is found, research has found that giving support to others is a really effective way to boost your own self-confidence. Some of you have probably had experience teaching or mentoring other people. And when you try to teach somebody else, that's a great way to really learn something yourself, because now you have to teach somebody else. And it also helps you cope with your own adversity. It diverts your mind from the challenges you have, and it makes you feel strong and confident to help other people with their challenges. Giving support taps the resources, our perspective, and our talent to help a wider organization adapt to change. Asking for help and accepting support is really critical for resilience. Only by admitting what we don't know and asking for help can we gain the emotional support, information, and commitment of others to help our organization survive and adapt. So I think a lot of you have maybe seen variations on the exercise of who is the board of directors for you. And I've seen it in some contexts around finding another job or figuring out how to advance in your career, specifically within an organization. I'm thinking about it in a wider context now. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes on an exercise to explore the important relationships that ground us. So also on all the tables, you find a piece of paper. The instructions are on one side, and after you go through the instructions, you're going to use the other side to do the exercise. So I'd like you to work through the first 2 sections on your own, and then the last 2 sections you'll kind of share with table mates. So I've given you roughly about how much time to spend on each section. So why don't we get started? Okay, time's up. Unfortunately, like many aspects of the toolkit that we've been discussing today, any aspect of this could have taken a 2-hour seminar by itself or even week-long seminar. So this is really a very brief introduction to help you think about relationships and how they ground you and how they're important and make you more resilient. So I would definitely encourage you maybe to let this percolate in the back of your mind. Maybe it's a matter for meditation, who knows? But come back to it in a couple of days and think again about who's at your table, who ought to be there, who isn't there, who maybe should be swapped out. All right, I'm going to turn things over to Janice to wrap us up now. Again, I would just encourage you to do this again. So your picture is on one side, the instructions are on the other. Come back to it in a couple days or a couple weeks and see if you've changed your mind about anything.
So this is a time for reflection and to really talk about what did we learn today that we might like to take action on. We heard a lot of things, and I hope that along the way maybe you made a few notations in your booklet around each of the aspects of being grounded that could be something that you might incorporate into your life that might make a difference for you. So I would ask you to consider making a commitment or to take action on one thing to add to your toolkit, to build 3 things in your toolkit, one around mindfulness, one around your purpose, and one around relationships, and see if that takeaway can help you continue to build your toolbox to be a more resilient leader. And as part of that process, you can access some of the tools that are in the back of your booklet. It has examples of some other exercises that might help you give some more reflection to these topics. There's also a whole page on websites and resources that we used in creating this workshop. And I'd just like to, in closing the event, I would like to encourage you to join us for our next program. And on September 10th, Learning Continuously, read the book, Grit. And it has a lot of topics that contribute to these aspects we've talked about in terms of building your skills and your ability to be a resilient leader. I'd like to thank our program team, Carol, Courtney, Heather, Gianna, and Carrie, and a special thank you to Michelle for putting together a great experiential program based on her special capabilities to share with us. I'd like to thank Paul Sinelli and Kelly Greco, our gracious hosts, for their sponsorship in this great venue and the refreshments, and also Leslie Bobb and Stephen Walton, who helped us set up the room and all of our technology to make us successful today. Again, thank you all for being here, for taking time out of your busy work days to spend an afternoon exploring new things about being a resilient leader. And we hope that you learned a few things for your personal toolkit today to take back and calm your stress and give you aspects to be more productive in your workday. Thank you.